Welcome to this week's Movie Math, where talk about switching places. Oh, I love Photoshop. I was inspired. So yes, this is, as you're about to see, another live-to-tape Movie Math. It's a format I experimented with a couple of weeks ago when I was on vacation, but could not miss covering the opening weekend for Superman, because every Sunday, you and I have a box office date. So occasionally, something comes up. Typical Movie Math takes like 6 to 7 hours to make. It's a labor of love. And so I don't always, rarely I don't have the time to do that. So what I would do is I would either skip Movie Math on those Sundays, I know, what? Or do it the following day on Monday. But because the live to tape experiment worked, now if I don't have the full time, there are instances like today where I can still deliver Movie Math to you, even a little earlier, actually, as you're about to see, or as you're seeing. All right, so we certainly have a lot. Oh, by the way, since it is a labor of love, if you don't want to miss our Sunday dates, why not subscribe? Woo! The fun live to tape. I love you, OBS platform. So yeah, why not hit that subscribe button? And of course, on Tuesday, Alien Earth is starting. I've been working on my breakdown. We're going to have a great time. All right, so yes, let's have fun with this little graphic here. Oh, I love it. Okay, so with live to tape, well, we go through the topics like this. So, yes, Disney has been dominating for decades. And so where I want to start. All right, so yes, live to tape is an art. Okay, so they've switched places, as you can see. In many ways this year, but this weekend, I think, was yet another smack in the face for Disney, because Freakier Friday was supposed to easily win the weekend. And yet here it is, coming in behind Weapons. We're going to go through each movie in depth, but Weapons opened with around a little over 40 million, and Freaky Friday opened with like a little under 30. So it was just, I'm sure that Disney was like, not again. I don't know. I guess that's kind of like what Disney's, the problem overall, that perhaps Disney took its brands and its fans and its, success for granted, and has, become just, Jackie Chan made a comment, I think yesterday, about how Hollywood is so, Hollywood has to turn a profit. It's not a non-profit industry, but it's supposed to be, as Thanos says, a perfect balance, of art and business. And I think the balance is clearly, we can all see it, out of order. It's not functioning correctly. Now, Disney, I can see why they have made assumptions and have gotten comfortable, because they've dominated for decades. Often having the most billion-dollar pictures every year, sometimes the only billion-dollar pictures in a year. In fact, that happened just last year. This isn't even like only pre-pandemic. This is a dominance that's continued post-pandemic. And to be fair, the only $1 billion in the movie so far this year is Lilo and Stitch from Disney. But boy, have they really damaged their franchises, Not just Marvel and Star Wars, which we'll talk about in a moment, but I think Pixar's really suffering, It's just, I think that you're going to see Warner Brothers, I think, is doing a little bit more exciting stuff. There's the risk reward, right? And Hollywood has, I think, become more and more risk averse. And so Warner Brothers is changing that, too, hopefully. But yes, Marvel and Star Wars, these are two franchises that, really like talk about Thanos collecting Infinity Stones. When Iger picked these up, it seemed like the studio would become unstoppable. And for a while it was. But Disney has inflicted real damage here in particular. At least Marvel fans aren't as upset as Star Wars fans are. There isn't the vitriol that you see in Star Wars discussion. But, fans, in fact, at Marvel, ironically, are pretty happy right now. But they've lost the casual audience. I think that's pretty clear. And it's very bad. So I have the slates here. So there's Disney's slate. And you can see Lilo, and I have them in order of success, by the way. So Lilo and Stitch doing very well. Fantastic Four, king of the tiny mountain. It's better than the other two Marvel movies, but none of these are performing as they're supposed to. And then you've got some real flunkers down here. Snow White, Elio, which is a shame because that's a good movie. The Amateur, that's a Fox holdover, which was actually pretty solid. And then, of course, Freakier Friday just entered the marketplace. Now, here's Warner Brothers. Woohoo! Things can always change. Like Zazie and the Warner Brothers leadership were in so much trouble just at the beginning of this year. And now everybody's like, man, what are they smoking? Pass it over here. So Warner Brothers, yes, heck of a year. There's their slate, but also again in order of success. Minecraft movie, Superman, which is pulled slightly ahead of F1 worldwide. Sinners, of course. Final Destination, Bloodlines. Mickey 17. That's when we were all really nervous about Warner Brothers. And then, of course, Weapons has just entered the marketplace with a very big bang. A lot of new IP here. Disney's just mining the same well, and they've sucked it dry. Whereas Warner Brothers is taking risks with Minecraft isn't a huge risk, but it's new, and they're launching new brands and going into new spaces and bringing back very old franchises like Final Destination, Bloodlines, although I guess Freaky Friday's older. But, and that's working out for them. And I'm going to call it the soft relaunch of DC. Not quite where we want it, but better than Marvel. We're going to talk about DC and Marvel in depth. And then, of course, really revitalizing their horror brand. Sinners, Final Destination, Weapons, all horror franchises. And before Jason Blum came along, Warner Brothers was really, dominating in that genre. And they gave it up a little bit for like just a smidge. And now they're really kind of back with a vengeance. And it's great to see them utilizing that the way that they're supposed to, because it's a big genre for them. So we're going to go over Weapons and Freakier Friday in a moment. But I know that you guys are all very interested in what's happening with Fantastic Four and Superman, because, you're still plugged in. And they are, of course, for a very long time, superhero movies have been the tent poles of Hollywood. So they are, really important. So we're going to discuss them up front. Alrighty. So, bye, Photoshop picture. I love you. Okay. Here's Fantastic Four. Here's my talking points. Let's dig in. All right, so Weapons. Talk about a scary movie. This is a horror story for Fantastic Four. Just last week, I said that Fantastic Four's future would be reliant on whether or not August would have a hit movie. Naked Gun didn't turn out to be that film, but here comes Weapons. So there's going to be and maybe Weapons won't. It's only its first weekend. But what's going to be the movie that plays all month long until, Labor Day weekend? We thought maybe a lot of Marvel fans said it would be Fantastic Four. But it's not looking like that's the case. Because not only is Weapons really hot out of the gate, wait till you see when we dig in there. That movie is just an incredible performer. But also Friendly Fire from Freakier Friday. That's their own freaking studio. They were like, oh, I told you no kid. I told you this wasn't a family-friendly movie. And sure enough, kids aren't interested in Fantastic Four. But families and women weren't going to Fantastic Four anyway, despite the focus on Sue Storm. But women all ran to Freaky Friday. So it's not been good. And you can see that reflected in the box office, where for the third weekend, it fell another 60%. It fell like 66% or something last weekend. It actually didn't even do as well as the Sunday projection said. It was even a little below that. And here it is dropping another 60%. So it's dropping like a rock, or like The Thing. If you dropped The Thing off the side of a building, he would fall like the box office of Fantastic Four. It's bad. All right, so it's a 230 domestic, 203.8 international, also not doing well international. You would think, this would not have the same problems internationally that Superman does, but it does. And then global, and some people are like, it's the politics of America. It's the tariffs. We hate you. And that might be true. But then how do you explain movies like Lilo and Stitch and Minecraft still doing very well? And F1 is a Hollywood film, and Jurassic World, those movies are all doing well overseas, quite well overseas, in fact. So it doesn't pass the smell test. So yeah, 434.2 global in just 3 weeks. But as I said, it's dropping fast. It has passed the other Marvel movies. Yay! Like, these are bad. All right, so let's ask the important questions. Can it reach 500 million? Who would think we'd be asking that about a Marvel movie? It'll probably reach 500, but I don't think it'll reach 600. I saw someone tweet that, it's definitely going to get a sequel. I'd be really surprised, but let's talk about it. But yeah, the drops are, do you think it'll get a sequel? Share those thoughts down below. All right, so big drops, really, really big drops. And then it's, what's it performing like? The Ant-Man movies. Now, in the defense of those saying that it's doing well enough to get a sequel, they did make 3 Ant-Man movies. But should they have? Because Ant-Man, I think, is largely responsible for destroying the Marvel Universe. By the way, who came up with the idea for doing the Fantastic Four in the 1960s? Peyton Reed. Oh my God. As I said, as soon as Peyton Reed, even if he didn't come up with it, as soon as Peyton Reed said, that's a great idea, they should have said, don't do it. Oh my God. They should go over to Peyton and say, what would you do, Peyton? And then do the opposite. So yeah, so you can see that it's performing right there with the Ant-Man and the Wasp movies. If only they'd stopped at 2. If only! Although I do like Ghost. Although Thunderbolts didn't do well. All right, so we'll see if they make sequels. Now, this is the lead into Doomsday? Talk about foreboding and doom, right? They truly are Doom's villain. He's like, what did you guys do to me? But of course, Spider-Man Brand New Day from Sony, and they're doing a heck of a job marketing that thing with the filming on location. That's actually going to be the lead-in. But we'll see, I've been hearing some rumblings about how much Spider-Man is going to be, if at all. Like, I don't know for sure, but perhaps they might be saving the Robert Downey Jr., Tom Holland reunion for Secret Wars. I'd be like, that's a mistake, you guys. What do you think? Do you think Spider-Man needs to be in Doomsday, or is Doomsday probably already too crowded? Now, what's very interesting to me is Mr. Pedro Pascal. There he is. Using powers he rarely used in the movie. So, it's so crazy. Hollywood is a tough business. When this movie opened, we were like, maybe pretty good for Pedro Pascal. Now we're like, maybe nobody wants to see Pedro Pascal. It's tough. And the interesting thing, in my opinion, is that, of course, he was supposed to be in Weapons. So he was supposed to play the Josh Brolin role. But because of the strikes and Weapons therefore being delayed, he no longer could star in the film because he wanted to do Fantastic Four. Now, so I have a note here saying actors and franchises. Now, on the one hand, you're like, dude, should have stuck with Weapons. I think it would have hurt Weapons, as I said in my review, because it's another distressed dad role, although so is Reed Richards. And Pedro Pascal can't keep playing that. Think how refreshing it was to see him in Materialists, where he wasn't a distressed dad. I'd be like, branch out, Pedro, you have the acting skills. But I don't blame him for taking Fantastic Four. That was a big payday. He got paid in the double digits of the millions, so at least $10 million. And Weapons' budget was only $38 million. So that was he got paid almost a quarter of the Weapons budget. So yeah, Pedro, he suffered for a long time. He's been a working actor. He's paid his dues. You get that money. But I do think it's going to give more and more actors pause about joining big franchises, which could end up hurting them. Whereas Weapons, if it wasn't for the distressed dad overlap factor, would have been a wonderful feather in his cap. So I think there's got to be a little bit of a sting there. The success of Weapons is angering a lot of people. Why don't we talk about Jordan Peele? A lot of people have, envy over how they're like, could have been me, should have been me. I'm curious as to hear your thoughts on that. So I wouldn't call Fantastic Four a success by any means. And I think it's just another example of the issues that Marvel is having. And I'm curious about your thoughts on that as well. Let's talk Superman, because there's been a little bit of a mix-up on this. I want to clarify some things about Superman. So here it is. Here we go. This movie in its 5th weekend is in 6th place. It fell only 43%. It's holding on pretty good, but the numbers look great. Particularly domestic. Well, that's not true. The domestic number is fantastic. The international number is a real bummer, and it's pulling the entire movie down. But domestically, I'll say it now, it's actually pulled ahead of Jurassic World Rebirth domestically. I mean, I don't know. I guess, you can take American way out of the slogan, but still, Superman's a very American character, and I do agree that might be part of the reason it's not performing overseas. Also, the white savior aspect, American, global, used to be called global dominance and protection. Now it's called interference and mind your own damn business. It's a complicated situation. And also, James Gunn put those very elements into the movie itself. Superman actually is dealing with the global situation and whether or not he should intervene. I thought it was a fascinating conversation. Okay, because it was ripped from the headlines. Little too personal for some people. And it's a 575.1 global. So some people have been asking James Gunn, because you guys love to bother him on social media, and he can't resist answering you, sometimes to his benefit, sometimes to his detriment. So somebody said, hey, James Gunn, I heard this movie has to make like 670 to break even. It's a lot of mincing of words here. That's why I've put profitability versus performance. The question wasn't asked very well, and James Gunn took advantage of that to answer it as he wanted to. So the person was saying, doesn't it have to do what Man of Steel does to be profitable? That's where you gave James Gunn an opening, because the break-even point, the budget is $225 officially, so 2.5, 562. Already made its money back. Technically, already profitable. James Gunn has every right to answer that the movie is now profitable, because it is technically. I mean, they might have fudged those budget numbers a little bit, but in Hollywood, particularly on the big movies, who doesn't? So he has every right to say that, and he's correct. But the question is, and what this person was really asking was performance. What is the movie supposed to make? What shows a healthy franchise? What shows a healthy relationship with not just the fans, but the casual audience? And Superman doesn't have it. I continue to feel that the very reasonable goals are, I'm not even holding this movie to a very high standard. I'm not saying it needs to make $1 billion, but I think these are reasonable things. Man of Steel, 670. And to James Gunn and the movie's credit, it has sailed past Man of Steel domestically, but internationally, it's more than 100 million behind. Ooh, that's so ouch. Ouchie, 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 ouch. I don't think Superman's going to catch either of these movies, by the way. It might get close to Man of Steel, but that movie came out almost 10 years ago. It's ridiculous. And by the way, I think it's a much better movie than Man of Steel. It should have done better. And also, I think it should match The Batman, which itself didn't make $1 billion, but was very well received. It's getting close to the domestic. We'll see if it can. It probably will actually end up I told you it was trailing behind The Batman. Probably end it'll end so close to The Batman, we can call it basically even. But look at the international discrepancy. That's really big. Really, really significant. So yeah, James Gunn, I know he's owned up to it. He said, we're not performing as we should internationally. But I hope he and his team are digging into that and being like, why? How can we fix this? Don't just shrug your shoulders and go, oops, oh well, I'm sure it'll fix itself. Trump's got a lot of years left on his term. It's not going to fix itself. You're going to have to really think about that. So I think that Superman benefits from at least performing better than any of the Marvel movies. But I think the superhero genre is in trouble, and we'll see if Spider-Man and Doomsday can rescue it. Much like Deadpool and Wolverine put a lot of, and then everybody turned on it and said you hated it. Whatever. So ungrateful. Okay. Now, I've seen some people trying to say that it's bad that the movie is set to release on August 26th in digital. Yeah, and that knowledge didn't make, I don't think that's particularly well known. Maybe it is now. Oopsie. But, it's still performing well at the box office, and that's a 45-day window. I think that's actually I think it's getting low there. I don't think it's going to get much higher, and I think that still gives it a couple of weeks in theaters only. I actually think this is a good release date. Why? Well, Jurassic World Rebirth that had an even shorter window, and that made more money over in the box office. And, Universal has proven you can make quite a bit of money on digital. So, and because, they charge a pretty penny for this stuff on digital. So, who here went and bought Jurassic World Rebirth? I know a lot of people who went and bought that as soon as it hit digital. So that's a ton of money right there. Do you buy or do you rent when these things hit digital? But yeah, I think why shouldn't Warner Brothers follow a little bit in Universal's footsteps? Universal's making a lot of money on digital. And then that happens to be the week right before Labor Day weekend. So that comes out on a Tuesday, and it will not only be there that week, but it'll be something people can watch all the way through the holiday weekend. And I think they wanted to claim that because there are other movies that could have rushed to get that for a digital release. So I think it was very smart. They planted their flag there, much like that kid in the Superman movie. And they said, we're putting our movie out for Labor Day weekend. I almost would have maybe released it for that. And that's a Tuesday release. Maybe I would have released it like on the Friday to really make it like an event. But I think it's very smart. I think it's good. Make the money where they can because they're not making enough in the box office. All right. Now let's switch over to the weekend's new releases. We have so much to talk about with Weapons. It has 2 columns of chapters to discuss. All right. Wow. Woohoo. We love to see a healthy movie business. So here's Weapons, which overperformed and opened at, as you can see, $42.5 million when it was only projected to open with around 30. That's fantastic. It only has a $38 million budget, which gives it a break-even point of just $95 million. I think worldwide it's like already 70. It's all gravy, man. It is beautiful. And they spent like no money on advertising. They're letting word of mouth do a lot of the heavy lifting. They're like, shh, don't tell anybody. I even didn't do a full spoiler review because I want to respect the experience of going to see this movie. It's really cool. As for the demographic breakdown, leans slightly male at 65%. Good diversity breakdowns, It would have been nice to get the Asian and the Hispanic categories and the Caucasian. They're a little bit where it would be nice to take a couple of points off here, bring up the black audience a little bit. But of course, they actually don't have any black characters in Weapons. So, that's actually pretty impressive considering. And look at the walk-up business. 63%. That's incredible. That shows that social media was doing its job. With people being like, streets be saying this movie is crazy. Let's go on the street, walk over there and see it. I love it. How many of you decided to see Weapons at the last minute based on all the hype? It really is an amazing theatrical experience. I saw Freakier Friday yesterday as well. And I saw Weapons again on Friday. And it was such a wonderful, wonderful experience. There's a moment with Julia Garner in a car where you could hear a pin drop. And then when something happened, everybody gasped. It was such a cool thing to experience. And the audience at Freakier Friday was there to have fun as well. And so both of these movies, I feel, are excellent examples of films that demand to be seen in theaters. And I hope both of them play really well throughout the entire month. Weapons is something special, though. You really should. I don't know if you've missed the opportunity to have that kind of experience because you didn't go opening weekend, but I would give it a whirl. So in comparison to Longlegs, blew that out of the water. That opened with just 22.4. But Warner Brothers is having a very good year with horror. And this is actually opened in the realm of their other 2 movies this year, Final Destination, Bloodlines, and Sinners. Although you can see that Final Destination, Bloodlines, while it opened the biggest, only got to 138.1 domestic, whereas Sinners was a sensation and got to 278.5 because it just played week after week after week. Remember, it had like an under 10% drop in its second weekend. I don't see Weapons it doesn't have that. It's not that kind of a phenomenon, but it is a wee phenomenon. And so I could see Weapons playing all month long, and I think it could end up probably somewhere between these 2. It's very exciting, really great. I hope that they don't rush it to digital or Max. I hope that Warner Brothers adheres to a 45-day window for this film as well. Now it has an A- cinema score. Oh my God, this just shocked all of us with just how incredible this is. So if you watch Movie Math all the time, you know that it's almost impossible for a horror film to get out of the C range. If it gets something in the B range, we're like, wow, that's amazing. So an A- for Weapons means they truly have something special here. Warner Brothers, the first Conjuring movie, got an A-, spawned a franchise. Get Out and Silence of the Lambs also got A- cinema scores. And those movies are Oscar winners. So let's move to our next discussion block. Oh boy. Oscars? I saw some people this weekend saying, oh, weapons for the Oscar. Let's get weapons for Best Picture. Let's get, Amy Madigan for Best Supporting. And I'm like, slow your roll because you're forgetting about Sinners. Sinners is from the same studio, and it's also a horror film. Warner Brothers can't be pushing aggressively 2 horror films. I think that would be extremely difficult for them to do. And I think getting Sinners to be a major Oscar nominee itself would be an incredible feat. They're not going to undercut it by splitting the vote with Weapons. So that's just the reality. And, I think that Krieger isn't as far as along as Ryan Coogler. And I think Krieger would feel awful if he undercut Ryan Coogler's Oscar chances. Ryan Coogler has a genuine shot at winning Best Director. He would be the first Black director ever to do so. Krieger doesn't want it. He's like, please, don't leave me out of this. So I think that Warner Brothers will aggressively push Sinners. That doesn't mean, though, that Weapons couldn't maybe get something. For instance, Jordan Peele won his Oscar. And by the way, I think it's fantastic and really interesting that Krieger and Peele both come from comedy. And even Osgood Perkins' films are very comedic, and we're going to talk about him, as you can see. But these guys both came from the world of comedy and really ended up making a name for themselves in horror. But yes, Jordan Peele won his Oscar for writing for Get Out, and I think there's a real chance, at the very least, they could maybe get a nomination for Krieger for Weapons. That's what I would push for. I think that's their best opportunity without hurting Sinners too much. But I'd be really nervous about hitting Sinners. What do you think? What would you do if you were the Warner Brothers awards campaign office, right? So speaking of Jordan Peele, people were sure talking this weekend about that news story that he was so upset that he lost out on the bidding war for Winners to produce it himself. And ultimately, Roy Lee is the producer of it, and it went to Warner Brothers, that he fired a large number of his team because he was so upset that they let this slip away from him. So that's pretty amazing lore right there. I think that he and Zach Krieger should go to lunch or something, or get drinks and take a picture together. I think that would be lovely for both of them. Now let's talk about Zach Krieger. Is an Oscar in his future? Well, he has a pretty stacked dance card already. He's going to be doing the new Resident Evil movies, which were also the focus of yet another bidding war. Krieger is hot, hot, hot. I appreciate Krieger's transparency, by the way, about how these things happen, the strategy that he and his representatives and also producer Roy Lee have when pitching these projects. It's been very interesting. So he talked about Resident Evil, and then also, of course, he's been going around telling everybody, oh, guess what, guys? I wrote a DC movie! And he's like, it's about a henchman who accidentally kills or hurts Batman, and becomes really famous amongst the criminal element in Gotham. And a lot of you accurately said, wasn't that a Batman the Animated Series episode called The Man Who Killed Batman? It was. Paul Dini and Bruce Timm are like, what? But yes, and apparently Joker and Harley show up in it. I think it's funny that when this news first broke, they were like, Zach Krieger wrote a Joker and Harley movie, when apparently he didn't. They're just in the film. But again, I said Krieger's very transparent, and he revealed that he wrote this a long time ago. This isn't like something he just wrote. And I think or maybe not a long time ago, but he didn't just write it. And it's really when he was trying to get his career off the ground and he was doing spec scripts. So I don't even know if he wrote it when Gunn was the head of DC, but it's something that he wrote. So the question is, should James Gunn read it? I don't know. I'm sure Gunn is like, get away from me, Krieger. I think James Gunn likes other voices in the DCU, but not ones that are bigger than him. Although he's getting along with Matt Reeves, to his credit. I don't know. I think that, there's a real danger that it's so good that it might totally eclipse everything else that James Gunn has going on. But at the same time, how can he not read it? I think he has to ask to take a look at it, because Krieger's just too hot right now. You got to see what it would be weird. Although, sometimes James Gunn is weird. He might just say, I didn't have time, or we're not interested in going in that direction. And, Krieger certainly, Krieger doesn't need him to look at it. He's booked. So as I tweeted the other day, I said, well, what should they do next when it comes to weapons? Should they do a sequel, a prequel, or as Krieger has teased, another movie in what he creates to be the Weapons cinematic universe? Let's see. I mean, we were wondering if they should have made a Joker sequel, and the answer was no, right? Sometimes sequels are effective. We'll see if what he decides to do. But he's very busy, so he doesn't. That's not something he has to answer right away. He's already going to be making this Resident Evil film, and if that does well, he'll be making Resident Evil 2. I know a lot of Resident Evil fans are like, we sure lucked out that we got Krieger. All right, then I think it's also interesting that speaking of people who started out similarly, Jordan Peele and Osgood Perkins, their projects have not continued to do well. They've both kind of hit kind of rough patches. And so one has to wonder, how can Krieger avoid the same fate? And I think he's very smart to have gotten to franchise filmmaking with Resident Evil, something that Jordan Peele has intentionally avoided. Franchise filmmaking, if you get it right, if you get it wrong, goodbye. But if you get it right, it really creates a huge foundation for your career. Look at how Black Panther helped Ryan Coogler level up, and now Coogler is going off and doing these other things. And he's on track to be another Nolan. So I guess that's true. And Nolan, by the way, is Nolan because of franchise filmmaking. So you want that franchise filmmaking to put you on that upper track, that Spielberg track, the Hitchcock, all those Hitchcock. Well, yeah, Hitchcock never had a franchise, but that was pre-franchise Hollywood. But that's the big difference. And Krieger has put himself on the franchise track. Now, to Jordan Peele's credit, he's taken a lot of meetings and just nothing has worked out. He wanted to maybe do X-Men. And I got to tell you, considering how poorly Thunderbolts performed, I think maybe Jordan Peele would have been a better option for X-Men. I actually think Jordan Peele, well, who do you think was a better choice for X-Men? Jake Schreier, who did Thunderbolts and, is good, or Jordan Peele? I think it should have gone to Jordan Peele. But, oh well. So very interesting. Okay, let's move over now to Freakier Friday. Here we go. Okay. So, number 2 with just 29 million. And I think what makes that look particularly bad is that's what Mean Girls last year, the one that everybody made fun of that was a musical, a surprise musical, and everybody was like, oh, what's with all the singing? That came in basically right at the same place. And that was considered very poor. So, it makes them seem like, it looks like it was a party, but for only fans. It didn't really seem to bring in new fans, which I think is a little underwhelming. $40 million budget, though. Interestingly, Weapons in Freakier Friday cost just pretty much about the same amount of money to make. And that gives it a $100 million break-even point, which, I don't know if it'll make that much money. That's interesting. We'll see what its second weekend drop looks like. Heavily female at 71%. Woo! Also, diversity demos not exactly where they should be. 52% Caucasian, and that this has a diverse cast, but to a degree, I think it's really the Lindsay Lohan, Jamie Lee Curtis show. And by the way, very good show. Hispanic 26, 9% Black, 9% Asian. 66% under 35, which I think is interesting because Freakier Friday, the first one, well, the one that this is based on, came out 22 years ago. So if the 35 crowd would be about 13, that means when this movie came out. So, that just happens to be the demographic break, where Hollywood's like, yes, under 35, good for ads and stuff like that. But that also maybe that's one of the reasons they did another Freaky Friday, because its fandom was still in that sweet spot. All right, then theatrical versus Disney Plus. Lindsay Lohan, to her credit, said she would only come back if this was theatrical. But it raises an interesting question. I saw the trade saying, why don't we put Hocus Pocus 3 in theaters? I don't know, Hocus Pocus 2, it was fun at the moment, but that and Enchanted, although if they could maybe get back on track and deliver something of the quality of Freakier Friday, maybe. It's something I would consider if I were Disney. But then the real question is I'd have to ask my bean counters, what's more valuable to me? This kind of piddly box office or keeping people subscribed or getting them to subscribe or resubscribe to Disney Plus? So that's a really important question and why streaming is very different, because it has a different metrics and a different point of what is considered needed. So, I'm not sure if Freakier Friday, considering that its box office is only okay, where it would have done the most good for the company. It has an A cinema score. That's phenomenal. It eventually will get to Disney Plus and digital, where I'm sure it'll do very well. And it's a solid film. It's not great, but it is better than Hocus Pocus 2 and Enchanted. Jamie Lee Curtis picked this thing up and dragged it across the finish line. She's phenomenal here. Quite good. And I wish she would do more comedy. This just goes to show that she's just so funny and so game to go out there and get the joke and get the laugh. She's really phenomenal in the film. I thought she was amazing. They were pointing out again that she got this because the producer at the time, or the studio representative, thought she was very funny in True Lies. And she was very funny in True Lies, very funny and very sexy. And so she, in fact, replaced Annette Bening, who was supposed to first play this role. I don't know. Annette Bening apparently had script concerns. Maybe she didn't like all the jokes about how old Jamie Lee Curtis's character was back in 2003. So Annette Bening dropped out of it, and Jamie Lee Curtis got one of the best movies of her career, one of her signature films at this point. But by the way, as you can see, I put Catwoman. How many things has Annette Bening missed out on? Because she was having a child, she couldn't do Catwoman. She had to drop out, and she decided to drop out of Freakier Friday. Like in another universe, in the multiverse, Annette Bening has a very different type of career, which I find fascinating. And then I think Lindsay Lohan, Lindsay Lohan's not the greatest actress, but I think she also is really a lot of fun. She really is all in on, delivering for the audience. And I think she looks phenomenal in this film. She looks absolutely gorgeous. So I think she did a great job too. Will they make another one? I mean, let's see how this film does. Not only how it holds up week to week through the rest of the month, but how it performs on digital and streaming. I don't know if I'd make another one of these. I don't know if I'd hire Lindsay Lohan again, but if I were a producer in Hollywood or a studio executive at Disney or a studio executive anywhere, I'd say, get me Jamie Lee Curtis's agent on the line. I want to do a comedy with her. I think she was excellent. Very, very good here. Okay, now let's take a look at the overall top 10. Here we go. So you can see here we have the two new movies on top. They pushed Fantastic Four down to third place. Then we have last weekend's new releases. We've got The Bad Guys 2 and The Naked Gun, both falling about 50%. But the real problem is that they opened so small to begin with. So they're not doing great. I mean, they're okay. They're not embarrassing themselves. This isn't great for Naked Gun. These movies really need to be fantastic performers on digital, where I'm sure they're headed quite soon. In fact, I know for a fact The Bad Guys 2 will be on digital August 19th. And I bet you The Naked Gun will be on digital before the end of the month as well. Maybe it'll compete with Superman for, maybe try and come out the week before. I would get Naked Gun out as fast as possible. It's I don't know, 8.3 is actually not bad. Maybe wait till September. I don't know. I feel bad Naked Gun didn't connect more. It's a really good movie. All right, there's Superman. Okay, so let's talk about some of these. So we have 3 movies in a row here that I think are very interesting. Superman, Jurassic World Rebirth, and F1 the movie. Okay, so this is just their domestics. So let's take a look at their worldwide. So here's Jurassic World in the middle there. Jurassic World Rebirth, very strong at 800 million basically. And by the way, already on digital this weekend, and it only fell 46%, even though it's available on digital. It's not like it plummeted. So Superman will probably still do okay in theaters, even once it hits digital at the end of the month. There's Superman, and again, Superman pulled ahead of Jurassic World Rebirth domestic, but you can see Jurassic World Rebirth has just left it in the dust internationally. It's almost double Superman's international box office. And then I want to give a shout out here to F1. There's F1. Where's my arrow? There's F1. Woohoo! F1's doing extremely well overseas, better than Superman, even though its domestic is lower. But Superman has pulled ahead of F1 overall. But that's great for F1. And again, as we said last week, it's now Brad Pitt's most successful film of all time. Okay, now let's head over to the Nielsen. Nielsen, okay. Here's the overall chart. What are we looking at here? Love Island, Squid Game has lost a little bit of its, it's still very high though. Look at all these things. Through number 7 is over 1,000. Oh, well, that's actually like 1 billion minutes. So that's incredible because these are in the millions. So that's excellent. Very healthy streaming watch. Peacock is pulled into first place. Love Island is truly a phenomenon. That's, again, their second hit reality show after The Traitors. Sullivan's Crossing, I was like, what's that? It's an acquired old show from Canada that they just stuck on Netflix, which features Chad Michael Murray, who, of course, is also in the new in both Freaky Friday movies. Medea's Destination Wedding, that's doing pretty good here. Okay, it's pretty high up. And then you can see K-pop Demon Hunters clearly is doing a lot of its viewership is overseas, but it's still doing nicely here in the United States. It's on the overall chart, right? A lot of movies can't say that. As for the originals chart, where's my arrow? Okay. As for the originals chart, what even is Ballard? Oh, that's that spinoff of Bosch. Oh yeah, boy, that was on the OGs actually. Oh, isn't that Maggie Q? Good for Maggie Q. You know, she never went away, even though it seemed like maybe she didn't have a career. That's phenomenal. I guess people really like Bosch. Okay. So yes, here we've got Ironheart, slipped away, unfortunately. The Waterfront is still hanging on. There's The Bear. I mean, there's Sandman. These aren't great numbers, but at least, they're on here. And there's Poker Face, which, that's how low this chart is, though, unfortunately. So that's, meh. All right, then we've got movies. Here's the movies chart. There's Medea's, Tyler Perry, still got it. Often tops this chart. Number 1, K-pop Demon Hunters is right behind it. Heads of State, remember this came out for the 4th of July, although it's one of the most watched movies ever on Prime Video overall, globally, but you can see, interestingly, people wanted to watch that, it seems, overseas quite a bit, whereas even though it's about, the UK Prime Minister and the US President, maybe not as huge here. And then this is Sinner's first full week on Max, which just goes to show how many people already saw it in theaters and on digital. And look, Zombies 4, Dawn of the Vampires, which again is a pretty good example of what Disney does. They just milk stuff to death. And you're like, it's dead. Find something else. They're like, we feel there might be just a little something left. And we're like, no. Okay, let's take a look now at Netflix's charts for just last week. Here on the movies chart, Happy Gilmore and K-pop Demon Hunters continue to just be such successful films. I checked. K-pop Demon Hunters hasn't popped into the all-time most watched movies just yet, but I'm sure it's very, very close. I think it will next week, especially because for like 7 weeks in a row now, it's added another approximately 25 million views globally. That's incredible. And they are really gearing up for that Oscar campaign. Going to be interesting. And look at Happy Gilmore, week 2, almost 41 million views. I mean, Adam Sandler doesn't care. He's, as I think it was Liberace used to say, Adam Sandler's laughing all the way to the bank. He doesn't care what you think of his Netflix movies. And there's Sophia Carson, another Netflix star, and any other week, if it hadn't been for these two juggernauts, that would have been really an amazing debut. So she yet again has delivered for the streaming service. I believe she was the host of their Tudum presentation recently because she's just so valuable to them. So that's great. Then with shows, okay, Untamed, still number 1. A lot of you said you appreciated the grandeur of the shooting, and I don't know if it's actually Yellowstone, but it's supposed to be Yellowstone, and it is a very beautiful show. The Hunting Wives, despite all its sexiness, still not really getting a lot of views, and then True Crime, of course, continues to do well for them. Oh, but this is very interesting. Wednesday is this is the week before Wednesday debuted, because Netflix is again a week behind. But people were catching up. So that bodes well potentially for Wednesday's first week numbers, which we'll be finding out this coming week. Also, there's that Leanne Chuck Lorre sitcom. Whew, yikes. That did not do well. Although I think some sitcoms have done well on Netflix. Maybe it does well for them. Maybe it's not a too expensive show, so it's worth it for them. Okay, now let's take a look at the digital chart. Okay. So, Jurassic World Rebirth, that's what Superman wants to accomplish, number 1, and still doing very well in theaters. So I think Warner Brothers is handling Superman's digital release quite well. 28 years later from Sony is right behind it. There's Pedro Pascal, Materialists. People are watching him in that. Thunderbolts, How to Train Your Dragon. That's great. That's healthy for those. Look, people are buying the Jurassic World movie collection, which I think is like around a little under $10 a movie. That's like 7 movies. That's pretty good. There's Lilo and Stitch, which just recently hit digital, but people know it's coming to Disney+. And then also there's Alien Romulus, by the way. Alien, of course, starts this week. And Alien Romulus, Alien Romulus is actually not the movie you should be watching to prepare for Alien Earth. You should rewatch, I think most important is to watch the first Alien film, maybe Aliens, the second one. And then if you have time, it's pretty close at this point, but Blade Runner, just for some references. But Alien Romulus is on sale. It's a great movie. I'm certainly not going to tell you not to watch it. You should watch it. I really liked Alien Romulus, but it's nothing compared to Alien Earth. So let's talk about what's coming out this week. Okay, so theatrically, Nobody 2. Will Nobody 2 be able to be number 1? Or will Weapons, if Weapons has like a Sinners type hold, it might hold on to the number 1 spot. So Nobody 2, I'm worried this is going to be like that K.Y. Kwan recent action movie from the same, that's Chad Stahelski, David Leitch's company, 8711. And they don't even really bother to make real sets anymore. You're like, this is clearly just a place for you to do stunts. And they're like, so what? So that's coming out, Nobody 2. And then also, this will be very interesting, Americana with Sydney Sweeney, which she has done limited press for. Coming out, we'll see if her American Eagle Jeans campaign helped, hurt her, or didn't do anything. So people are certainly going to be keeping an eye on that. Digital, Eddington, more Pedro Pascal. Eddington that's Ari Aster's movie that bombed. That'll be going out on digital on Tuesday. Then as for streaming movies, Fixed comes out on Wednesday on Netflix. This is like Seth Rogen, if he did Lady and the Tramp, as I tweeted when I just saw it a week or so ago. Interestingly, Seth Rogen has his own stuff coming out this week. It's very raunchy, very hard R. Nobody who's not an adult should be watching this. But I thought it was charming and funny. And, if you liked Sausage Party, you will like Fixed quite a bit. It's from Genndy Tartakovsky. So, he certainly has and has an all-star voice cast, including Idris Elba and Catherine Hahn. So I think, I was surprised. I didn't think I would enjoy it. I enjoyed it. There was like a press event. That's why I attended. They were very nice. We had a great time. Then with shows, oh yeah, baby, it's here. Alien Earth. I hope this connects. I really do. I think it's one of the best shows I've ever seen. I'm hoping one of you remembered that I haven't been this excited about a show before it hits since The Boys. It took The Boys about a season and a half to really hit, but it did in a big way. Now it's one of the hottest shows out there. I think Alien Earth, hopefully, is on the same track. 2 episodes drop Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Hulu. I will be doing weekly breakdowns, so be sure to join me. So again, you're going to want to subscribe, man, so you don't miss it. Where's my subscribe button? There we go. Okay, and then on Prime Video on Wednesday, Sausage Party has this new series, Foodtopia. Seth Rogen has a great relationship with Prime Video. And he has a show on Apple. He is working. I enjoy Seth Rogen still. I think his stuff's, I watch almost all of it. And then both his things that he's acts in and produces. And then Limitless. Chris Hemsworth is back with another season of his National Geographic show starting on Friday on Disney and Disney Plus and Hulu. Okay, so that's this weekend's movie math. Supersized because we had so much to discuss. Thank you I hope you were cool with the live to tape format. But again, it allowed me to do movie math on Sunday instead of having to delay it a day. I will see you next Sunday for regular movie math. And of course, this coming week, we got a lot of fun stuff to go over, including Alien Earth breakdowns again on Tuesday. All right. And of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.